I drove nearly 5 hours from one end of the state to the other this week to conduct interviews for my documentary. I just finished one of my last semesters of college, and this documentary is part of my capstone for graduation. It's also part of a fellowship. I just got back from my first girls' trip. I went to New York City with my little sister and my best friend. My husband is currently away in Europe. He's in Austria on his first solo trip. I guess technically this is my first solo trip, but I don't know if it counts because all I did was come home. Also, my dog is here. But let's get into the real meat of why I'm here in the first place. I'm conducting interviews with multiple people affected by DuPont.
If I had known I was going to be interviewed, I would have written a lot more down because there were so many things that made you go, that made you question.
He worked for a company that carried away the barrels of toxins, and he sloshed around in it with his feet. And he said it was clear, and they thought it was water they were walking in, but it wasn't. It was the toxins. And he had the highest level of anyone I had ever seen.
My documentary is titled Along the Creek. So if you're interested in that, it'll be premiering in November this year. And it's changed a lot, I think, from when I initially set out to do this project. At first, it was just going to be, for my capstone, something that would allow me to kind of flex my journalistic skills and I guess my research skills. I'm majoring in communications and new media with a concentration in journalism. But after getting into the fellowship, I wanted to take the environmental side into consideration more, and I started, I think, to notice a pattern. Growing up in this region, I've always been familiar, I guess, with DuPont. It was always just a fact of living here in the Chemical Valley. Initially, my project focused on the Town Run Creek in Shepherdstown, but that became merely a jumping off point once I started to zero in more on AI and the connections I saw to the DuPont story. For those that aren't aware, DuPont is responsible for polluting the Mid-Ohio Valley region with chemicals such as PFAs and PFOAs, leading to illness and environmental implications in the region. It feels like history is repeating itself here in West Virginia. AI data centers are popping up all over West Virginia, some of them in my own backyard here in Berkeley County. The effects that these data centers have on our environment is catastrophic, more than people realize. We are already seeing negative effects on the Potomac River watershed here in our region, which has now been named the most endangered river of 2026. This is due to dumping by companies, but also runoff from data centers, which use water to cool their systems. Through this process, synthetic chemicals such as PFAs and PFOAs, also known as forever chemicals, and heavy metals leach into public drinking and groundwater. As many as 5 million people rely on the Potomac River for drinking, which doesn't account for the amount of animals that live within and around it. Now let's get into some recommendations. I started doing some research. This is Exposure by Robert Billet. He's an attorney who helped families affected by DuPont. I also watched the movie based on this book called Dark Waters. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it already, you should check it out. I'll also leave some links below to some other research if you're interested. There's also an amazing documentary titled The Devil We Know. I won't be going too much into the DuPont story, but I think it's still important to the story to understand that this has happened before in many different forms, and it will continue to happen again if we let it. I will also be writing some pieces about this on my Substack, which will be linked below if you're interested. Bye!